Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy President's Day. Are you out there buying mattresses or new flat screen TVs? What's this holiday even about? I don't know, but some of you guys have the day off and some of you don't. Over here, we've got a ton of content to get to. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. Fans slam alumni for taking sides in the Erich Schwer, Gabby, Wendy, riff, their breakup. They broke up months ago. Now, Erich's got a new girlfriend, and one of the alumni from Michelle Young's season said that's an upgrade for Erich, which has led the internet to be very upset at the judging of ladies and how could you and this and that. So we're going to get into this story. There's actually multiple stories we're going to cover in this video. Follow me on Patreon at patreon.com/Dave Neal. Today, I'm going to share just a couple clips from Wednesday's stand-up show that I did with Katie Thurston in our live Q&A. Here's a quick 4-second nothing that I'm going to share with you from the beginning of the Q&A. And if you come on Patreon at 10 a.m. today, we'll have a little bit more of that.
James, like, you sure you want to say that?
I was like, sure.
I said it.
I was like, sure, some things. And she's like, no, we're going to go the whole way.
So that's all you get. I said, share some things, and she said, we're going to go the whole way. All right, so I've got 3 pieces of content. We're going to get to this story I just had with Erich Schwer, but first, just a couple other clips from the Rose Pricks podcast. They talked about trauma bonding on the show and how producers are involved. Have a listen.
Producers only think that you're going to bond with someone on the show if your story is a heavy one.
Because that's their thing. Do you remember the Russian girl who was, I think her name was Christina, who grew up in the orphanage and was like forced to eat lipstick to have something to eat?
No.
That was like, she was on Bachelor in Paradise. She's super, super pretty. But that became almost a joke when they're like, okay, it's your first date. Get your story ready.
Okay.
And she had this like a terrible story.
Orphanage. Okay, can I do mine? I have one for you.
Okay.
So you're Zach, and I'm Cecily, and here's so we're on our date.
Okay.
We haven't seen each other in 2 weeks.
Listen, I was really, really hoping that you could open up. Just like show me your vulnerable side.
Yeah. I mean, this is just really hard to tell you, but like,
I
was murdered by a serial killer.
Oh my God.
What?
Yeah, so of course, Rose Pricks doing a good job of illustrating the absurdity of the show when it comes to sharing your darkest stories with new people you just met. Of course, the show gets free sort of entertainment from a non-paid cast list. And of course, in some cases, doesn't necessarily, handle it with kid gloves. You know what I mean? If you're going to share someone's story, you need to respect their story. And of course, the show just respects ratings.
Okay.
No, it's okay. You can cry. No, you can cry.
Okay. I was murdered by a serial killer, and then he cheated on me, and I was like,
what?
Okay, well, I'm a
After
ghost
murdering you?
Yes.
He had the nerve to cheat on you? No.
Thank you for seeing me for who I am, because that was scary to tell you, but I was a ghost, and I was like, well,
I guess. So very nice. Go check out Rose Pricks podcast. We always love to sort of promote other content that's out there in the world. Okie dokie. But by the way, the title of this says, talking about how the producers force trauma bonding. I could be wrong. Could someone let me know? Trauma bonding's a misused term. It's not about bonding with other people that have also had trauma. Trauma bonding, it's actually the term that I'm familiar with. It's when you agree with the abusive person's reasons for treating you badly. It's a bond you have with your abuser. You try to cover for that person, argue with, or distance yourself from family or friends that are trying to help you because you have a bond with someone who is causing your trauma, not someone who can commiserate or empathize with that trauma. Am I right? Do I have that? So that's a misused term we have in the Bachelor world. But they didn't say that, but the title did. Okay, so one more clip I'm going to share before we get into the Erich Schwer video. And this is Keenan on a podcast discussing how she grew up in New York City, which I always find interesting because she's super wealthy and can share. Like growing up in New York City, even though I lived in New York City, growing up there is a different type of person. It's just some like playground where because you don't have to wait for your driver's license to go out. All the kids are going to the nightclubs. So here's her story about going to the nightclubs at 14.
The difference between like the Blair Waldorf Gossip Girl side of you versus like growing up in Brooklyn? Like what are the key differences that you feel like you saw?
The Blair comparison that I get, which I think is a huge compliment, is because my mom is a fashion designer. So like I grew up in the fashion industry. Her mom in the show is a fashion designer. I got my first fake ID when I was like 14 and I started clubbing every weekend.
14?
Because I went to private school, kids had money and like boys in my grade, like in freshman year of high school, were buying tables at clubs for like thousands and thousands of dollars every weekend.
I cannot believe you had a fake ID at 14 years old.
Could you
What do
imagine?
you
I'm
think is
more
the
stuck on the idea of 14-year-old boys buying tables at a nightclub. I've never been able to afford to buy a table at a nightclub. I'm the idiot who's getting like a Diet Coke or a cheap ale, and everyone else has got these bottle service with the sparklers. Either way, Kid Keenan, you can't fault her for growing up in a place of privilege. Her mom's worth something like 9 figures. I think she's worth like over $100 million or something crazy like that. So she's grown up in a different world, but I can't imagine how young Kit would have looked at 14. She looked young in her 20s. You know what I mean? At 14, she must have been a baby just going to nightclubs. Who's letting these kids in? What are they wearing? It must be cold out there. And everyone's been out there, our audience, a high portion of you guys are women, and God knows you've got stories of going out to the nightclubs in the freezing cold. We went to a nightclub in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It was negative 30 and I didn't have underwear on. You know what I mean? The stories you hear. Golly. If I ever have a daughter, I just want to say, look, pack a jacket, bring your thermals, do what you got to do. No one needs cold feet. Okay. So let's get into the third and final story of this video right now. Do me a favor. If you like these compilation videos or any of the content, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. It's kind of a slow time of the year in the Bachelor world as far as content goes, which is why stories like this really take off when there's some sort of tea that's shared in the comment section. When there isn't anything else to talk about, it can get really inflamed. So Bachelor Dishes the Dirt posted this relatively innocent photo, which was Elizabeth Turner and Erich Schwer, their new relationship. They just sort of hard launched their relationship during the Valentine's week. She is a model. She's, I believe, a graduate student, or she has, and I hate to include on her resume that she dated Leonardo DiCaprio, but of course that's what kind of boosted her into that next level of fame. Because he's a supreme A-lister. But now she's in her mid to late 20s, and maybe she wants to settle down with the reality star like Erich. So she's self-made. She's got 1 million followers. She's doing her whole thing. No big deal. They're happy. They're just sharing that love. Well, and let's see if we can find where this was posted. Here's the comment that has since been deleted, which we're sharing right now, from Rick from Michelle's season that said, "That's an upgrade for Erich." Now, on the fairest of levels, I have to say, well, what does he mean it's an upgrade? Who's he referring to? He didn't say Elizabeth Turner's a better catch than Gabby. He didn't say anything like that, but I think we can all agree that was the implication. If that wasn't, we probably would have heard something else. But in the comment sections, he then had to go and delete his comment. But the people have been sort of upset at the sort of thought there, because Rick was seen as a guy that was very much like a fan favorite. He was like an innocent, nice guy. But I think it just goes to show that, look, he's not a horrible person. He probably very quickly learned his mistake that it's not good to compare other people. Just because Erich and Gabby didn't work out doesn't mean Elizabeth's an upgrade. When you start comparing one, it makes the other person like it's an obvious insult, especially publicly. Someone commented, "Not only is this a jerk comment, but it's also weird that he's talking about Erich's new girlfriend being attractive. Don't comment on your friend's girl, weirdo." Well, I have to say, it's one of those things that, like, in private, you'll probably hear these types of conversations, and it would go other ways. It's not to be sexist, like it's one way or the other. If Gabby met a new guy, I'm sure Gabby's friends in private would be like, "Oh my gosh, what an upgrade from the other loser." That's what friends do. Friends are really great at calling your exes a loser. "Oh, we didn't think he was good." It's like, why didn't you tell me that for 3 years, Deborah? You know what I mean? Someone had commented, "I'm not even a fan of Gabby, but she did this loser so many favors by not dumping him live on After the Final Rose and killing any chance he had at an influence career. I hate that pathetic men like Rick feel so comfortable publicly shitting on women." So anyway, look, it's one of those things. Am I going to apologize on his behalf? No, not absolutely. Do I think he'll come out with a with some sort of like Instagram apology? I don't think so. I don't think his following's big enough to warrant that from the audience. You know, he's got 27,000 followers. He probably doesn't monetize his social media. And this is what it comes down to, folks. If you don't monetize your social media, as in being an influencer, there's nothing the audience can really take from you unless they want to go to his place of employment, which I think would be sort of like, I think that would be the wrecking ball going too far here. If anything, people could argue like, hey, you know, could you clarify in your statement there? So, you know, whatever. And some people, you'll see comments were deleted, but someone said, how rich of Rick to comment he's upgraded since Gabby. Are you salivating for the new girlfriend or just for your next 5 minutes of relevancy? Now I understand why the women ignored the boys in Casa Amor. So of course, look, yeah, it's kind of what you'd expect from after leaving a comment like that. And who knows? You can't, you know, if you're a friend of Rick's, you go, dude, what are you doing? You can't say that. You can't do that, man. Come on. You know, people are going to attack you. There's no reason. And the funniest part about it to me is that it was on Bachelor Dishes the Dirt, which no offense to them, but it was on a fan account. It wasn't even on like their personal account, which almost makes it worse because it's like, there's two different types of Bachelor alumni, those that comment on fan accounts and those that don't. And you kind of have to just think of which one you want to be. But from a PR standpoint, if he's not trying to, like I said, if he's not trying to grow, and maybe he is, I don't know, but at 27,000 followers, he's not at the size that someone's going to come after him and try to cancel him and do all this stuff. I don't think that'll be happening. But so those are our three stories. We have a lot more to get into. I could explain more about Elizabeth Turner, but we covered her last week in the Valentine's episodes where Eric and her sort of launched their announcement. Katie Austin is their mutual friend. You can see here that Eric and Elizabeth both follow her. She's a fitness influencer, and she is hanging out with them and posted their photo. So while we aren't getting too much from their social medias, it will be interesting to look at moving forward just to see how much we have going on with that relationship. But it looks like they're getting pretty serious. So we'll have all eyes on that and more content coming our way live today, 1 hour before tonight's episode, 7 p.m. East Coast, 4 p.m. Pacific. And I'll be live back to my normal schedule right after tonight's episode, 10 p.m. East Coast, 7 p.m. Pacific. Also, patreon.com/Dave Neal. I'll be live this morning at 10 a.m. for the private bonus content if you want to see some more clips from the stand-up show we just had. All right, folks, more content coming your way. We'll be back right after this.